To get from Cusco to Machu Picchu by train, you'll need to take a train from Cusco to Aguas Calientes, the town at the foot of Machu Picchu. San Pedro train station is located in the city center, only a 10-minute walk from Plaza de Armas. During your journey, you'll be treated to breathtaking views while leaving Cusco, including the high plains of Anta and the Huarcondo Canyon. It will then run through the Sacred Valley, follow the Urubamba River, and finally reach Machu Picchu. The journey takes approximately 4 hours and 30 minutes. From Aguas Calientes, you'll then take a bus to the Machu Picchu Citadel. Machu Picchu Pueblo, also known as Aguas Calientes, is a location in Peru situated in the Cusco region, Urubamba province. It is the seat of Machu Picchu district. Machu Picchu lies at the Vilcanota River. It is the closest access point to the historical site of Machu Picchu, which is 6 kilometers, 3.7 miles, away, or about a 90-minute walk. There are many hotels and restaurants for tourists, as well as natural hot baths which gave the town its colloquial Spanish name, Aguas Calientes, or hot water. Like Machu Picchu, Aguas Calientes is not accessible by road, and the only way to reach Aguas Calientes is by train or by hiking. The village of Machu Picchu did not exist until the railroad was built, as it was a center for construction workers. It took off after the railroad opened in 1931 and foreign tourists started arriving to visit the Machu Picchu ruins. Enterprising individuals set up businesses serving the tourists, primarily restaurants and small hotels. Machu Picchu is a 15th-century Inca citadel located in the eastern cordillera of southern Peru on a mountain ridge at 2,430 meters, 7,970 feet. Often referred to as the Lost City of the Incas, it is the most familiar icon of the Inca Empire. It is located in the Machu Picchu district within the Urubamba province above the Sacred Valley, which is 80 kilometers, 50 miles, northwest of the city of Cusco. The Urubamba River flows past it, cutting through the cordillera and creating a canyon with a subtropical mountain climate. The Inca civilization had no written language, and following the first encounter by the Spanish soldier Baltasar Ocampo, no Europeans are recorded to have visited the site from the late 16th century until the 19th century. As far as historical knowledge extends, there are no existing written records detailing the site during its period of active use. The leading theory is that Machu Picchu was a private city for Incan royalty. The names of the buildings, their supposed uses, and their inhabitants are the product of modern archaeologists based on physical evidence, including tombs at the site. Machu Picchu was built in the classical Inca style, with polished drystone walls. Its three primary structures are the Temple of the Sun, the Temple of the Three Windows, and the Intihuatana. From 1929 to 1971, Machu Picchu underwent extensive restoration and conservation work, including structural stabilization and artifact excavation, driven by government initiatives and research expeditions. Most recent archaeologists believe that Machu Picchu was constructed as an estate for the Inca Emperor Pachacuti, 1438 to 1472. The Inca built the estate around 1450 but abandoned it a century later, at the time of the Spanish conquest. According to the new AMS radiocarbon dating, it was occupied from circa 1420 to 1532. Historical research published in 2022 claims that the site was probably called Huayna Picchu by the Inca people themselves, as it exists on the smaller peak of the same name. Machu Picchu was declared a Peruvian historic sanctuary in 1982 and a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 1983. In 2007, Machu Picchu was voted one of the new 7 wonders of the world. The site is on a narrow saddle between 2 mountain peaks, Machu Picchu and Huayna Picchu. In the Quechua language, Machu means old or old person, and Huayna, spelled Huayna in standard Spanish orthography, means young, while Picchu refers to a summit, peak, or pyramid. Thus, the name of the site is often translated as Old Mountain or Old Peak. Although the original name given to the settlement by its builders is not definitively known, a 2021 study in MACHU PICHU, Journal of the Institute of Andean Studies, suggests that the site was likely called Huayna Picchu, after the smaller peak nearby, or simply Picchu. According to the research, the association of the name Machu Picchu with the ruins likely began with American explorer Hiram Bingham's 1911 publications, a conclusion supported by Bingham's field notes, early maps, and historical documents. Much of the farming done at Machu Picchu was done on its hundreds of andans, man-made terraces. These terraces were a work of considerable engineering, built to ensure good drainage and soil fertility while also protecting the mountain itself from erosion and landslides. However, the terraces were not perfect, as studies of the land show that there were landslides that happened during the construction of Machu Picchu. Still visible are places where the terraces were shifted by landslides and then stabilized by the Inca as they continued to build around the area. The terraces also enabled irrigation, increasing crop yields, with maize likely being the main crop due to its ceremonial importance, alongside possible cultivation of potatoes. However, terrace farming area makes up only about 4.9 hectares, 12 acres, of land, and a study of the soil around the terraces showed that what was grown there was mostly corn and potatoes, which was not enough to support the 750-plus people living at Machu Picchu. This explains why studies done on the food that the Inca ate at Machu Picchu suggest it was imported from the surrounding valleys and farther afield. It is estimated that the area around the site has received more than 1,800 millimeters, 71 inches, of rain per year since AD 1450, which was more than that needed to support crop growth. Because of the ample rainfall at Machu Picchu, it was found that irrigation was not usually needed for the terraces. The terraces received so much rain that they were built by Incan engineers specifically to allow for drainage of excess water. Excavation and soil analyses done by Kenneth Wright in the 1990s showed that the terraces were built in layers, with a bottom layer of larger stones covered by loose gravel. On top of the gravel was a layer of mixed sand and gravel packed together, with rich topsoil covering it. Research showed that the topsoil was probably moved from the valley floor to the terraces because it was much better than the soil higher up the mountain. During its use as an estate, it is estimated that about 750 people lived there, with most serving as support staff, Yanaconas, Yana, who lived there permanently. Though the estate belonged to Pacacutec, religious specialists and temporary specialized workers, Mayaks, lived there as well, most likely for the ruler's well-being and enjoyment. During winter, which was usually the harsher season, staffing was reduced to a few hundred servants and a few religious specialists focused on maintenance alone. Studies show that, according to their skeletal remains, most people who lived there were immigrants from diverse backgrounds. They lacked the chemical markers and osteological markers they would have if they had been living there their entire lives. Instead, research into skeletal remains has found bone damage from various species of water parasites indigenous to different areas of Peru. There were also varying osteological stressors and varying chemical densities, suggesting varying long-term diets characteristic of specific regions that were spaced apart. These diets are composed of varying levels of maize, potatoes, grains, legumes, and fish, but the last known short-term diet for these people was overall composed of less fish and more corn. This suggests that several of the immigrants were from more coastal areas and moved to Machu Picchu, where corn was a larger portion of food intake. Machu Picchu was previously believed to have been built in the 1450s. However, a 2021 study led by Berger used radiocarbon dating, specifically AMS, to reveal that Machu Picchu may have been occupied from around 1420 to 1530 AD. Construction appears to date from two great Inca rulers, Pacacutec Inca Yupanqui, 1438 to 1471, and Tupac Inca Yupanqui, 1472 to 1493. A consensus among archaeologists is that Pachacutec ordered the construction of the royal estate for his use as a retreat, most likely after a successful military campaign. Although Machu Picchu is considered to be a royal estate, it would not have been passed down in the line of succession. Rather, it was used for 80 years before being abandoned, seemingly because of the Spanish conquests in other parts of the Inca Empire. It is possible that most of its inhabitants died from smallpox introduced by travelers before the Spanish conquistadors even arrived in the area.